Great defeaters, new and old. Welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID, Tony, the Pugilist Boy. We are the children of the game. Tony, how are you? How is your day been going? How was your week? Talk to me.
It's been all right. Feeling fit. Yeah, no, I'm feeling all right. Congratulations, by the way. I didn't get to say on your team winning a trophy after, well deserved, good game. And it's been a calm weekend. And obviously, we're going to be chopping it up to see what action we could take action from.
Indeed. And I want to know, where is Bruce Kai? Because after the big talk he gave me last week, I come in the clear HD clarity, and man's not here to give me my flowers. I told him it was gonna be different settings, but we've had a bit of a madness with my camera today, hence why we're a few minutes late. But that's okay, because we ain't gonna take up too much of you guys' time. But yeah, Tony, I'll let you greet the great defeaters.
No worry, man. No worry. With pleasure. So, as always, as nearly always, greetings, Mulla. First in the house from early doors. Big up to Hot Pies in the house. Blessings to the subscribed Mr. A. Belt members like Maestro, my guy. Big up. Nabil, welcome, sir. Viral Spaces TV, never great member. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Dynamite Danny from Fight Fan TV Live. If you ain't following, follow, because the content is contenting in a big way. Jonah, yes, big up, my guy. Chris Collymore in the house, bless you. G Chain in the house. Steffi D, new name for me, Steffi. I don't say I've seen you before, but welcome. Enjoy the show.
Good stuff. So as you lot can see, I'm just trying to get my little board all set up. I don't like to have it out anymore, but needs must for today. Tony will tell you why, but I don't want him to. Yeah. Right. So let's get into it, because we want to keep this one short and sharp. I guess we should leave the main event till last. So I'm gonna let you dictate what order we start this in, Tony, and you're gonna start us off. So go ahead.
Okay, so I'm also doing a bit of work in the background.
You to be doing work in the background. It's showtime, baby.
It's showtime, baby. But you know what? When man sends me certain things at the 11th hour, you're like, oh, okay, thank you for doing that. Where should we start? So Saturday night we had.
Oh no, wait! Before we even start, Skyline is saying base flex the guns. So I mean, that's.
Ooh.
I'm not even as big as I used to be, but you know, this. If the great defeaters demand it, it shall be done.
So I'm too old to flex the guns, right?
I mean, if you want to go for it.
Oh, bless you, guys.
Let's go on Saturday, so let's talk.
Okay, so Saturday night we had a show from, I can't even think where it was from. Remind me, help me out.
Which one are you talking about? The PBC?
PBC.
Yeah, that was in on the East Coast somewhere.
Some obscure place. Was it Pomona?
Armory Arena. But I can't remember which city it's in. But it's on the east. It's on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Astro's in the chat. He'll know.
So it was Matthias against Ponce, and what a fight! I mean, if you haven't seen Base's breakdown on his own channel, you know, with the weekend wrap, do check out Base's weekend wraps, because they give you a heads up about what we're going to talk about in this show. It was a very entertaining fight, and we had Subrias Matthias coming in, and he was the puncher, and he was up against Ponce. Now Ponce generally is known as a boxer puncher. But from the get-go, from the very get-go, Ponce jumped all over Matthias. And he was taking it to my man. I mean, you know, big shots, mixing it up nice and early. They literally fought in a telephone box. It was almost like that. That they came to the center ring and they were like, okay, let's get it on. You know, I'm not gonna circle around the ring. I'm gonna stand there in front of you and let's see who's gonna back down. Ponce got the early rounds. His speed, he jumped out of it from the get-go. He certainly established himself as the dominant force from the very first minute of the very first round. And, you know, look, was catching Matthias with great shots. You know, Matthias was tidy in his defense. However, he was still taking shots because Ponce's attacks were multi-punched, and basically where Matthias would ride one or two shots, the third and the fourth and the fifth shot would catch him. And then he was punching in between shots with great aplomb. So he was effectively, you know, the aggressor and the one who won the early rounds. Early rounds one, Matthias is like, okay, you let me know that you wanted that smoke. Let's bring it. Round three onwards, Matthias is okay. Yeah, he starts mixing it in a way that he starts changing angles and putting better combinations together than he did in the first two rounds. The first two rounds, it looks like he's like, okay, I'm going to feel how that feels. I'm going to know, judging where you're going to throw your hands, where I can slip and where I can counter. And that's what he does with great aplomb in round three. And at this point, it almost looks as if Ponce is kind of just slightly dipped his levels of intensity, which has allowed Matthias to come back with strong combinations. And now he starts very quickly to build back the ascendancy in his favor and start to reverse what we had seen in the first two rounds and establish himself as the A side in the fight. And once again, you know, Ponce is not going to dance around. He's like, okay, you want to stand here? I'm going to be with you. He doesn't change his style. He doesn't do anything flash. He just sticks in there and says, okay, I'll punch with you. So round three, very entertaining because eventually back and forth. But the difference is Matthias is far more involved in the back and forth to the point where I believe he wins round three. 4 is definitely Matthias. He is all over Ponce now. He's basically coming in and being first. He's using great footwork to step into range and effectively batter Ponce from pillar to post, because now he's moving Ponce. It's no more of this, oh, I'll just stand in front of you, because Matthias is battering him. He's pushing him all over the ring. You know, left side, right side, inside, outside, body work, headshots. You know, literally everything's coming in now. And Ponce looks like, you know what, this is hurting. And in fact, there's a couple of shots where you kind of think, ooh, is he going to go down? But he rides through. Then it comes out. 5th round, batters him, pillar to post. And at the end of the 5th, he hits him a shot. And you're like, that's it, game over. Literally 10 seconds left in the fight or 15 seconds left in the fight, hits him, boom. You're going to have to remind the viewers when you review it what shot it is, because I can't remember what shot it is. But effectively, it's a beautiful shot and it drops Ponce. Looks like he's finished, but he gets up, unsteady legs. He gets through to the end of the round, and in the corner, his corner decide, nah, he's had enough.
So beautiful. I taught you well. You gave us a play-by-play. Didn't think you had to do that, but I guess
it was only 6 rounds, so you know there wasn't 5 rounds, wasn't
I like it. No, I want you to do that every bloody week. Just giving us a couple punch details here and there. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I'm playing. Right. Okay. So yeah, no, with regards to this fight, I agree with most of what you said, minus the fact that you think Ponce won the first 2 rounds. I gave him the first I think Matthias basically took over from there. So it was clear that in this fight, stylistically, Ponce, as you said, he's a boxer puncher. That's his thing. You find your distance, you create your angles. He's good at long distance, but he's also very good with body shots. He's always been good digging to the body. So going going in and the early rounds, trying to take those body shots. Obviously, he thought, okay, because Matthias is deciding that he's not going to engage as much, and we know that he's not really a guy that employs a huge amount of head movement. A lot of it is tucking up behind the guard. He sort of slips and slides just a little bit, but ultimately he's always about making sure that he's in front of the target for him to be able to punch. So Ponce decided, okay, let's go to war right now. From here, I know I hit hard enough to hurt you. Let's see if I can put enough damage on you from this first round that from the second round onwards I can start picking apart and picking my shots. But doing that, I feel like number one, he exerted a whole load of energy. But number two, when it came down to the second round now, and Matthias is like, okay, I felt what you got, but I know that you can't keep that pace up. So he started then moving in behind the guard, finding his angle just around Ponce's left a lot of the time as he was trying to throw his jab to before he could throw sort of uppercuts. But Matthias, all he was doing was digging to the body from early. They didn't even look like they were that hard shots, but they were very well placed, and he's extremely heavy-handed. He wasn't even really going to the head too tough, and you notice that Jeremias Ponce from the second round, the end of the second round, his mouth was wide open in the corner. He was gasping, trying to suck in that air. Like he was really, really at it from the second. Then obviously the third round, again, they both stepped in the booth because at this point, Ponce doesn't have the legs to move around and to move around and still have stamina. So he thought, well, I've still got power. Maybe if I hit this guy in between the shots, this is how ultimately I'm now going to win this fight. Because I've started on the front foot, I've expended a lot of energy. We're here now, and ultimately, that's what it was. From there, I mean, even the first two rounds, to be honest, but it was literally in the phone box. There was no movement. It reminds me of the second Creed film where you see Adonis Creed he's got his foot inside the wheel with the Mexican guy in the desert, and you both have to go in there, and the first person to step out is who loses. Like they were literally inside each other's wheelhouse for the entire duration of the fight. But Matthias just kept digging to that body to the point where it was just disrupting Ponce's frame and his construct. And as we saw, when it goes to the fourth round, sort of he wobbled him very hard at the end of the third. No, at the end of the second, he wobbled him hard. He hurt him in the third. Ponce did a little better in the fourth, but the writing was kind of on the wall. By the time he got to the fifth, again, body shot came over. He came over the top with an overhand right. Hit him to the side of the head with a left hook. Caught him with another right. Hit him to the body, and then tried to go over the top again, but caught him to the body at the last salvo, and that's where Ponce ended up dropping over to the ground. Again, he got up, fine, 6 seconds to go. He weathered the storm, went back to the corner, and he says he wanted to carry on, but I'm sure that the corner wouldn't have just pulled him out if they didn't feel like he wasn't showing them signs that, yeah, this one's not really going, it's not going to get any better for us, so best to save you for a next time. And I feel that's basically, they made the right decision, but they also allowed their guy to finish and see out the round. It's a big title fight. That's what you're supposed to do with so little left. And ultimately, that was how the fight concluded. Subriel Matthias, new IBF super lightweight champion of the world. And except for unifications, it's going to be extremely hard for him to find opponents, mandatories or voluntaries, because I don't think there's enough money you can pay someone for the amount of headaches that he's going to give you and the amount of head trauma. Because yeah, he definitely is a very, very dangerous puncher. But yeah, that's pretty much what I saw of that one. Again, if you haven't seen that fight, ladies and gentlemen, it was a brilliant fight. You need to watch it. Again, it was 5 rounds. So what's that? That's 15 minutes, 18 minutes in no, sorry, 19 minutes in total if you count the breaks between. It's well worth it. Yeah. So yeah, Tony, unless you got anything further you want to say about that, we can move on to the Sunday card.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's. I was thinking of talking about potential matchups for Matthias, but I think you cracked that bit anyway. So yeah, let's move on. Let's move on.
Okay, so I guess all right. So 3 fights left to go. But we're gonna keep. As I said, we're keeping this one short and sweet. We'll be out of here by 10 people. We had our good friend of the channel, our great defeater in training, Ziad Al-Mayuf was fighting. What was this guy's name? His second name was Martinez. What was his first name? If anyone can, was it
Ronald.
Martinez?
Yeah.
Okay. Who was he not also like a 4-0 or a 4?
4-0.
He's 4-0.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so Andy's a 19-year-old as well, so a young, spry guy. He was not, he was not there just to sort of lay down. So you can clearly see, because even in his first fight, Zizo was not necessarily given a quote unquote easy task or a knockover job. They're matching this kid hard from the start. Now, the first round sort of started. Yeah, so within the first round, I feel like he started kind of a bundle of nerves, to be totally honest. He was looking, I guess, for a highlight reel shot for pretty much the majority of that first round, and I think that he was, just overly keen to impress, which is one thing that we spoke about with him last week when we was asking about, sort of the pressure on you and how do you kind of handle it. So in that salvo, I feel like his mission was to try and get that fight over like as soon as possible, just to sort of get in and get out of the ring. Now, in doing that, he was neglecting the one thing that he actually stated from Buddy McGirt was what they had been working on for the first 3 months or about 3 months or the last 6 months since he had a broken hand on his right hand. It was just working the jab, because every time he was working behind the jab, he was hitting Ronald Martinez clean. Like, Martinez couldn't get out the way of that jab, but he kept sort of trying to follow it up with the backhand. Also, he was leaning forward quite a bit over his stance. So he was never looked like he was fully set underneath him. He was when he was walking forward, everything was very much crouched over, hunched over, like with his torso literally moving him before his legs were moving. To me, which I thought, if someone was a better opponent was looking to time him with like a left or something on the entry in, he could definitely end up having to take account, just because he would have been off balance. But he kept up positive aggression, which is something that I was really impressed with. Although, again, started to rush his work towards the back end of the fight when he thought he had sort of Ronald Martinez hurt in that first round. And I even saw before the knockdown occurred, where he got floored quite heavily, I saw the warning there, because the same thing that happened where we actually got caught, that exact same trade-off between the two of them happened literally, like, I think 5 seconds before, and it was narrowly avoided. And without thinking to reset, he kind of went in and done the exact same thing. But what I will say, and this is where I give big credit to Zizo, it was a heavy knockdown, and that's the kind of thing in a 4-rounder that could have literally like torn apart his confidence, messed with his mind, panicked him, and made him forget everything, and end up either losing another round or not doing well enough to actually get even a draw. Because I predicted after that he's going to have to either get the knockout or he's going to have to win every other round to not lose the fight. As a 4-rounder, that's kind of how it works out. But credit to him, as he got back up, he basically did he started employing the jab a lot more in rounds 2, 3, and 4. He was pumping out a triple jab, which every time he was pumping out, he was landing at least 2 of the 3 jabs each time. I just wanted him to stay on that jab. And it's the same thing Buddy McGirt was saying. Every time you're using that jab, you're killing him. Like, stick on the jab, set up everything behind the jab. And that spearing triple jab, I've never seen it done the way he does it. Maybe it's because he's maybe doing it novice-y, or it's just his way, but it was effective. So that's something I definitely want to see from him moving forward. But yeah, he quite convincingly won rounds 2 and 3, pretty much just off the jab and a couple of backhands, which were a lot more calculated and measured than they were in that first round. And then the fourth round was a little bit closer between the two. He almost got walked into a shot in the fourth as well, when Martinez was on the ropes, was bouncing off of the ropes, but he luckily readjusted, managed to get his hand up, went back to that triple jab, came over the top with a right, which visibly knocked Martinez's head back. And I think that's ultimately what ended up winning him that fourth round. And at that point, I thought, he's got a draw. He won 3, lost the first one, but he had the point taken off as well. So I thought it'd be 38-38. But somewhere in there, I guess they must have thought that he'd done enough in that first round to have won it, minus the knockdown. So instead of obviously being a 10-8, it must have been scored as a 10-9, because he ended up with a 38-37 score to win the fight. So again, incredibly fortunate to actually get it as a victory and not a draw, but he definitely did enough not to lose. And I think it's actually a perfect, I feel like for him, even though he's being matched very tough, that's probably like the perfect scenario. Face a crisis extremely early. So now he will know for his very next fight and any fight moving forward exactly, if anything happens, I know how I can handle it. I've dealt with this before, but better yet, he will also should know how to not get himself into those same problems moving forward. That's the hope anyway. But yeah, shout out to Zizo. 2-0. I'm looking forward to the next one. Tony, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm not gonna add much more to your breakdown. Like mine, you pretty much nailed it on the head. I totally agree with everything you said, and just want to congratulate Zuzu. Thanks very much again for coming on the channel last week. As you said, coming through that adversity of a knockdown without losing or panicking shows a lot of spirit and heart. We'll look forward to seeing you again in your next outing. See how you learn from that. Obviously, the time out of the ring can be a difficult thing to overcome. When you've been out for a prolonged period of time, it does affect timing, and activity can make you much sharper. So hopefully he can capitalize on this and get out again pretty soon and start building that resume.
Okay, good stuff. So we will now move on to the chief support or the co-main, depending on I think we should address this as a co-main, to be fair. It deserves that as its title. So this was for the WBC Cruiserweight Championship, the bout between Junior Alunga Makabu and Badu Jack the Ripper. Do you want to start on this, or should I?
You go for it.
Okay, so Tony has managed to get some footage, courtesy of Ashley Theophane. So big up to Ashley if he watches the show at any point. I'm not sure if Tony sends in the link, but Danny, I know you're big fans of him. To tell him, we send our thanks. So with regards to this fight, right? I watched it using that. Initially I didn't get to see it properly. Initially I was watching via a stream which was sort of lagging a little bit, or it was cutting out, so I didn't get to see everything initially first time round. So I saw it obviously towards the end of it, but I literally just watched it back properly about an hour and a half ago. And one thing that I noticed, because I was watching on the American broadcast, which to me was a lot better than watching the watching the UK one. I'd much rather listen to them than Richie Woodall, to be fair. Now, what I will say is I think there was a lot of PBC brethren bias going on in the commentary for this fight. You had Coach Larry Wade, Sean Porter, and I can't remember what the other guy's name is, the lead commentator, but all they did basically throughout this entire fight was cheerlead for Badu Jack and say every time he was getting punched, getting backed off, every time his head was getting popped back with jabs, um, every time he was basically not running, we're not going to call it running, but every time he basically exited the pocket and was having to straddle the ropes and tuck up and defend everything. Oh, like he's creating angles, he's slipping, he's dodging, he's riding, and these times he's not riding anything. The first round was a very I just want to say this without really like getting. I'm gonna do the breakdown, but I want to get this off first. So yeah, I put out a tweet a little while ago. Basically, Sean Porter, Larry Wade, and I think it was Ray Flores was the other guy, if I remember correctly. Yeah, literally, they gave no praise whatsoever to anything Badu Jack. I mean, to anything that Makabu was doing. Now, yeah, don't get me wrong. There was times like Jack was moving really well, and Makabu was having to offset and reset quite a bit, which was obviously because he was slow-footed. He was very slow. It looks monotonous, like maybe Jack was doing more than he actually was. But realistically, the first round was a very sort of nip and tuck round. There wasn't a huge amount that happened. So you could have given it a 10-10. You could have given it a 10-9 either way. It was really what you felt was happening. Makabu obviously threw more, landed slightly more in that round. But you could maybe say that Jack had a couple closer, maybe a couple closer shots than some others in the first. But there wasn't really a huge deal of separation in that. Second round now, Makabu activity is just there. Like he's stabbing, he's fencing to the body. He's coming over the top with the jab. He's pushing Jack's head back with that jab quite consistently. He's inside, he's working to the body where Jack's having to circle, move around, pick his spots, pick his angles. He's throwing some shots. Makabu's riding some of them. He's protecting some with his hands up. He's catching some. He's parrying some down. And Jack's getting off some decent work, but ultimately Makabu's just outworking him, outboxing him. Third round, pretty much the same thing. Towards the end of the third round, it's the end of the second and the end of the third. Makabu basically hears that clapper go, and he starts just unloading. He starts grabbing Jack, trading with Jack, trying to find him, just basically trying to find ways to almost hold him, trap him inside the corners, trap him on the ropes, catch him with heavy shots. Again, Jack is sort of firing back. But it feels more like he's firing back out of necessity at these times rather than picking his shots. And this is something I've always said, that Badu Jack is very much he's a second half fighter. He does everything. He starts very slow and then basically forces the pace and pushes things towards the second half of the fight. But if you catch him cold in the first half, he can make it very difficult and dangerous for himself. And that's why I thought he would actually end up getting taken out in this fight. Now, fourth round, again, Makabu's doing the exact same thing. He's picking all the right shots. He's hurting Jack to the body. You see Jack visibly wince several times, and like you can tell that these shots are actually at this point they're taking their toll. But what he started to do, he started to adjust. He started to move slightly more onto his left-hand side. He kept trying to make sure he stayed away from Makabu's power hand during the fourth, which was a change of tactics. He stayed more on the outside. He started to box more. Then every time he sort of came in, he would come in close at an angle and hit Makabu from the side before he's able to reset his feet to throw his own shots. And that was sort of an adjustment he made again in the fourth round, which I felt was a good strategy, because at that point he was just getting overworked and overridden. But even then, I still felt Makabu was going through the gears more and sort of taking it to him. And then ultimately he manages to pivot and switch angles on Makabu. He lands a big right hand, but as he's landing the right hand, obviously he positions his body just behind Makabu's leg. Makabu trips on his leg as the shot lands, goes over, obviously has to do a roly-poly to use his momentum to get back to his knees. a legitimate knockdown because the punch did land, but it was also not, it would have never been a knockdown had it have been orthodox versus orthodox or southpaw versus southpaw. So it was a bit unfortunate for him because prior to that, he was winning that round. So to me, I wouldn't even have been able to give it a, I wouldn't have even wanted to give it a 10-8. I would have had it as a 10-9 because prior to that, he was, to me, he was getting worked over, but 10-8 round, cool. Round 5, I feel like Makabu is trying to now win that one back, probably feeling like, you know, there might be some bias against him. He may not be the one that they want to win this fight, you know, bearing in mind that Badu Jack, Muslim, is based out of Dubai right now. You might see, okay, maybe I've got to do a bit more. So he pushed the pace in the 5th. Again, did the better work, Jack did the better work, I should say, but Makabu was more consistent. Again, investing in the body. Jack didn't like that. His head, he was still popping the head back with jabs. He was still catching him with overhand rights. Again, he was just more active. Jack maybe had a few more highlight reel looking shots, but overall he was just more active, and it looked like what he was doing was telling and doing a lot more damage at that particular time. 6th round, same thing to me. 7th round was a bit closer between the two. That was like one of, this is where all of a sudden Badu Jack started to more step on the pace, and you could see Makabu start. He looked a bit slower. He got even slower in the 7th. 8th round again, there was trading. That was like a what do you like type round out of the two of them. I still feel like Makabu was on the front foot. He was aggressive. He was still sort of getting through the motions. He was still maybe doing just a bit more. But at this point, you could see Jack was starting to get his rhythm. He was starting to get his timing a lot better. He wasn't taking as many flush jabs or backhands. 9th round, again, even though I would still say that Makabu was probably more active, again, digging to the body. Jack didn't necessarily like that, but he was more prepared to stand on the inside and trade now because Makabu's shots were even getting a bit slower than they were previously. 10th round, we saw the knockdown. There was the knockdown in the 10th. The 11th round, now this is where Jack was in his element, because the 10th round he basically dominated that one from start to finish. He started to find his range, his rhythm. He knew when to sit in the pocket, when to step out, when to turn Makabu. He just had energy. Makabu at this point just looked out on his feet. 11th round, total domination from Badu Jack. This is where I said the back, he's the background monster. That's, if you don't get him out in the first half, you have a hard night for the rest of it. And ultimately we got to the 12th, started using those angles again, pivoting off to the left hand side, boom, right hand over the, you know, right round the guard. Makabu was wobbled, went back to the ropes. Then Jack unleashed a salvo. Makabu managed to tuck up and avoid a few of the shots, but a lot of the body shots did actually rain in. And by that time, the ref said, "Nice, you've had too much. You've been down twice. It's not looking good for you. Let's stop this." So yeah, Badu Jack won on a 12th round stoppage, which took me by surprise. I did think Makabu would get this inside the first 6, just because Badu Jack is such a slow starter, but he boxed incredibly well. You know, even though I'm saying that the commentary are based on his performance was horrendous and horrendously biased, he did do very well. His fundamentals were on point, and I've always said he doesn't do anything great, but he does everything well. He's a hard night's work for anyone, and he deserves his flowers for, you know, becoming the new WBC cruiserweight champ. And yeah, that's pretty much what I will say about that. Tony, do you want to add something? And please make it substantial.
You know what? You go in, bro. You go in. I mean, you know, your blow by blows are fantastic, and that's why it's a pleasure to work with you. You know, you leave me very little that I can add, unless I disagree with you on something. There's very little else that I can bring to the description of what actually we saw in the fight. If I see something different, so for instance, Makabu slow feet, but what he has in instead of slow feet, he has fast hands. So I don't know if any of you remember Tony Tubbs, very slow feet heavyweight, but super fast hands. And Makabu is that guy. His feet, in fact, who is it? Someone else. a heavyweight who's also got slow feet but fast hands. I can't remember what it is.
Ruiz?
Ruiz. Yeah, he's another example. You know, the foot movement belies what his hands can do. But Badu Jack was very clever at using his feet. Now, I could show my use. Again, I like to use the analogy of what I can show my kids in terms of learning from fights. Look at it the way he uses his feet to go in and out, in and out. Do the work, come out. Do the work, come out. In fact, today I showed my kids the exhibition with Floyd, my pictures that I took from that, just to show them, look at the footwork, look at the use of the jab. So Badu Jack, a former TMT fighter, has some elements of that distance control. And he has always had that, to be honest. That's something that you could say, you know what, a remnant from the school of Floyd has remained there in his game. He's a very good controller of distance, you know, and there's nobody better in the game than Floyd. Even in that stupid exhibition, he still showed elements of how you can dominate a fighter. And Badu Jack was able to dominate Makabu because he was able to stop his fast hands connecting. So he's in, do your work, get out of range. You know, he does a great left-right roll, come out of a situation. So he does his work. Makabu immediately responds, but he's coming over the head of Badu Jack. Yeah. And that's a Floyd move, you know. So very good performance. As you said, you know, Badu Jack not setting the world on fire, not a concussive puncher, but an efficient puncher. And again, you know, a hard worker. You know, that hard work and dedication ethic that comes from TMT is something that you see. The guy trains hard. I look at him training in his training videos because he's often posting up on Instagram, and you can see he's putting in the work. So all that hard work comes back because if you don't train to the levels he does, you don't get a 12th round stoppage. And and as you said, you know, he's a second half of the fighter, you know, which shows you have to do the work. You know, a lot of guys they're gassing out later in the late rounds, whereas him on the reverse, his engine is still going through the same, you know, patterns and progressions at the same pace as he was in rounds 1, 2, and 3. So, you know, it's a good lesson to learn. You know, the consummate professional. Congratulations to Badu Jack. As you said, thank you, Ashley Fearfane, for the footage that you've provided for us. And I look forward to seeing where he goes next with his WBC Cruiserweight belt.
Brilliant. Thank you. Just to touch on the comments from Skyliner and CS. Yes, we did see the Conor Benn statement. We won't be talking about that here, but I do believe there is an emergency smoke potentially being filmed now, which could end up being released tonight or tomorrow. I will also have a video on my channel tomorrow morning regarding this topic. So if you want to see my thoughts on it, you can do that tomorrow morning. The video should be up by 8 o'clock the latest. I'm going to do it tonight and just set it to upload at early hours of the morning. You can watch it before work. But yeah, we won't be talking about that here because it's not the place. Right. Last and least, we had the main event of that card, which was the I guess the novice special, 8 rounds between, you know, Jake the problem child Paul and Tommy TNT Fury. Only one of them has a nickname that actually suits them, to be honest, which is the problem child, because there's no TNT in Tommy's hands, unfortunately. I've seen enough of his fights now to, you know, to discern that there's, you know, he's not a puncher of any sorts, and he's not gonna ever knock out anyone of note. That being said, with regards to this, I did predict that Tommy would win this fight on points, And if Makabu had have actually won his fight the way I believed he would, then I would have actually made quite a bit of money on the boxing over the weekend. But it's fine. I made quite a bit of money on football instead, so I'll take that. So with regards to this fight, it played out in the sense that the first 2 rounds, both guys sort of came out with nervous type energy, but I feel as if Jake Paul, to me, he actually looked more composed. Like Tommy was doing a lot of twitchy, herky jerky style type movements, but a lot of it you could tell, even just the way that his mouth was open at the time, it was not a panic, but he wasn't twitching comfortably. It was very much, I'm not trying to offset you, I'm just trying to avoid getting hit at this point. But he was leading behind the jab, which is something I did expect him to do. In my breakdown of the fight, I did predict that he would basically do and control sort of the first 4 to 5 rounds, maybe winning only 4 or 5 out of the first 6, but he would be fairly controlled and then have to kind of come through difficult moments towards the back end of the fight. So he won the first round quite comfortably, just off the jab. Landed the more shots overall. They was a bit scrappy in the clinch. Second round, pretty much more of the same. Ref started to just get involved for no reason from the second round. But again, he was working off the jab quite well. He employed a couple of sneaky uppercuts, which had no power on them. But every time Jake would dip down trying to avoid the jab that was coming through, or the right hand, sometimes he would pivot off to the side and throw a little cheeky uppercut. Nothing special, but it was, these were all scoring shots. Third round, Jake Paul seemed to find his rhythm in the third. He stepped on the gas, applied forward pressure, had Tommy sort of backing off at this point. He started landing his jab, his lunging jab, which he saw him throw a couple times, which snapped Fury's head back quite a bit. He had Paul retreating, he was stabbing to the body as well. And at this point, Tommy Fury was he was basically moving about, just trying to create distance. He was still landing shots on Jake Paul at this point, but Jake Paul's shots were a lot more telling and a lot more impressive, and they were causing a lot more, I guess, for lack of better word, damage at the time. So he won the third round for me. Fourth round, again, Tommy comes out behind the jab. He starts to find the home for the backhand as well. He lands a couple of straights. Also, again, lands that cheeky uppercut in the fourth. Gets a bit cocky at one point towards the ropes, where Jake lunges in with a jab, misses that, stabs to the body with his right, and then comes over the top with a looping left hand, which catches Tommy as he's trying to exit out to the left hand side. It caught him quite heavily, but because he was moving away from the shot, he was able to ride it quite well. But pretty much after that, he did start to move away from Jake Paul a lot after that within that fight. But he had already done quite a bit within the first half of that round to really sort of rack it up. Again, more clinching, more referee getting involved at that point. And then Tommy, just towards the back end of that round, just was a little bit busier and ended up sort of taking the fourth round as well. Fifth round, to me, this one was contentious, because I actually gave the fifth round to Jake Paul, because again, he landed the more effective shots. I feel like his shots, they were cleaner. Jake was landing Tommy was landing some glancing blows, but Jake Paul was landing more effective and sort of heavier shots in this round. But then within a clinch, miraculously, he somehow gets a point taken off of him by the ref. For the ref says hit him behind the back of the head. Now I've watched the fight 2 times and can't see what shot behind the back of the head he hit him with in that particular moment, but he gets a point taken off. But to me, because he won that round, I had it as a 9-9. Subsequently, reversed that in the 6th round. I think Tommy was winning the 6th round quite well, but then he ends up getting a point taken off for holding, and I guess maybe pushing the head down or something. It still wasn't really clear what the ref took that point off for either. But again, Tommy Fury won that round for me. So again, another 9-9 round. 7th round comes in. Now Tommy's actually stepping on the gas on this one. He's actually, he's just outlanding Jake at this point, even though he looks a lot more tired than Jake does. Jake just can't see. Jake wants to set his feet and just land a big shot. He's not looking to be busy and trade. He's just looking to try and find an entry in to land a big shot. And Tommy just was able to sort of stick a move a bit more in that 7th round, and basically just won that one off of activity. And then in the 8th round, when he literally should have just done the same thing, kept his hands up, stayed on the outside, boxed and moved, believing he does have the slightly longer reach, even though he's the shorter guy. He decided he wanted to sort of go in and quote unquote try and finish the fight. And yeah, that's where he became unstuck, squared himself up in the pocket, in the entry, as he was trying to battle and jab to Jake Paul. Ended up moving to the side. Paul ends up turning, hitting him with the jab as he stands square on. Took his back leg, and as he was trying to get his front leg on the ground, it did slip a little bit, but he was already moving backwards at that time, and yet he ended up on the canvas for a count of 8. Throughout the rest of the round, he did well. He recovered the round to a certain degree, but because at that point Jake was still managing to land some shots, and even though Tommy was landing a lot more, none of them were significant enough to hurt Jake. Jake wasn't visibly rocked by anything, so I still had to give that round as a 10-8 at that particular time. So just due to that, I had my scorecard 75-76 to Tommy Fury, which was 3 rounds to 5. You minus the 2 points both guys got taken off, and the additional point for Tommy Fury in the 8th round. Yeah, it was for the level they're at, it was a decent scrap. However, here's what I'll say, and I'm gonna bring you back on for this one, Tony. My biggest indictment of this is that it was a much more of an indictment on Tommy Fury than Jake Paul. Everyone said, "Oh well, you won't beat a real boxer." However, Jake Paul's very first fight of any note was in August of 2018, so less than 5 years ago. Tommy Fury supposedly has been boxing since he was 6, and he's 23 now. So we worked out that's about 16, 17 years, right? So you mean to tell me in 4 years to 17 years, this guy has managed to get to a level where he can drop you in the 8th round and make it somewhat competitive looking after 4.5 years? That tells you that you, number one, are not the level you think you are. You will never be the quote unquote world champion you're hoping to be. And you might as well just sign up to Misfits right now. I'm not even trying to be disrespectful, but you can't have been boxing for 17 years on and off. This guy's come in for 4 years and he's made up that much difference on you. I know that he's got the money to hire the much better trainers and everything, but just the basic fundamentals alone should have had you picking him apart like round after round. It should have been an 8-0 whitewash, maximum 7-1, because maybe you took a round off just to reset and go again, based on the level of knowledge and experience that you've got as a pro boxer. So while I congratulate him for ultimately getting the win and breaking the, I guess whatever hype there may have been around Jake Paul with regards to that, most people never really gave him a huge chance at much anyway. But if they had a rematch, I'd actually favor Jake Paul to beat him in a rematch, if I'm totally honest. Based on what I saw, I don't think Tommy will get much better. I don't think he'll be able to do much different, and I think Jake will be able to adapt. And again, with the trainers he's got, with the people he's around, he can see he's going to close that gap even more. Plus, he's the only one with the legit power out of the two. So, I'm not, like I said, I'm not slating Tommy. I'm just saying that based on what you claim to be and how long you claim to be boxing, this one, yeah, it is, to me, it showed boxing up more than it showed up Jake Paul, in my particular opinion. But what did you think about it, Tony?
Wow, you go in on these guys, man. Listen, you know my feelings towards this. I'm not a big fan of these celebrity bouts, but hey, it had to be watched. I watched it. I kind of feel like I just watched two novices. I literally just ended the fight. I'm thinking, look, Mike Ross, one of the referees, had it 75-74 in favor of Tommy. In favor of Jake, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not forget, this was a split decision. Controversial or not, it was a split decision. Now, as you alluded to, a guy is 16 years as a seasoned boxer, and not all as a professional, but as a seasoned boxer against a 4-year amateur, because he's an amateur. That should make a big difference in performance levels. And what we saw on Sunday night was just not significant difference between the two fighters. I'm not impressed at all. I don't think I want to see I don't want to see a rematch. I'm not interested in celebrity boxing. And you might say, well, no, but they're two pros now. No, they ain't. They are a celebrity boxer and a so-called pro boxer who's fighting, who's fought who? It's not like it's Huey Fury, who has got a plethora of decent fighters on his resume. Tommy Fury has nobody. And I see boxing pound for pound Jack. He said, me. Yeah, I honestly think I've got a decent chance. I was at school today talking about it with someone. I'm saying, you know what? If I have to move around with someone for 8 rounds, I think I could. I seriously think I could. Now, I know those guys hit hard. They're big guys. I ain't so small myself now. But I spar with heavyweights. I know how to move around with them guys. I personally don't see anything in either of those fighters that makes me think, ooh, he's got something about his game that makes me worry. Because there's no element of their game, whether it be a significant jab. Neither of them is great jabbers. If anything, I think, Jake probably just sneaks it with his jab to the body, and he has this jab to the head that he uses from a low down position. But there's nothing there that makes me think I got anything to worry about.
Yeah,
I still spar heavyweights, Maestro. Yes, I do.
So I mean, look, with regards to, I just want to obviously one comment here. Boxing pound for pound, Jack. We know that you are, Fury FC on the channel, and we love that you're here. We do want you to call in on Monday Night Smoke from time to time, though. Always in the comments, never on the camera, but fine. You say here, so jabs don't count all of a sudden. We never said they don't count. I said he won the rounds off of the activity. I said that. There was a couple rounds whereby even if you're landing quote unquote jabs and they're doing nothing, and another guy is landing bigger shots on you that are actually having more damage, then he's taken that round because he's more significant. He's done the more significant work in that particular round. It's just what it is. And the thing is, I don't know why you're arguing with me. I said he won the fight. I told you I predicted he would win the fight. I was expecting him to win it. And technically, even though you might say I wanted Jake Paul to win, I bet on Tommy Fury. I went with the person who I expected to win that fight. So yeah, I mean, okay. So we're getting the call out. So you see, Danny, fight fan, I'd stop both of them. All I need is a solid 20-week camp to lose some timber and get fitter.
Yes, Danny, bless up, big up yourself. I'm all for that work. I'll help you out in the training camp. You're a legitimate YouTuber, my bro. You can now put yourself in the shop window, and I'm there for that.
Obviously, Danny, if you need some hard sparring, you know who to come to. That's right. We can work on that, on the clinch game and the leaning and being comfortable under duress. I got that in abundance. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much all we've got time for. That's literally all that happens. There's nothing else to really discuss. Thank you very much for watching. We're gonna put up these banners. You're gonna see my stuff down here. As I said, BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual, right there, sir. Instagram, I mean, you follow me on there. I don't really post much on there unless I'm on holiday, to be fair. But if you want boxing news from me, get on Twitter at underscore B underscore A underscore S underscore E. Again, there will be a video out tomorrow with regards to this Conor Ben statement and some other stuff. Again, you got Tony's socials there. It's Pugilistboy on Twitter and well, a YouTuber. You can look it up on there on YouTube as well.
YouTube, yeah.
Instagram, it's Pugilistic Boy. We have to be very different with that because for whatever reason it goes old account banned. But we don't talk about that, do we, Tony?
No, sir.
But yes, let me just say quick salute. Oh, I want to say a quick salute to the people we didn't get to at the start. So Brush, big up to you. Lifetime Ian, big up to you. Obviously, Maestro, we've bigged you up. Skyliner, we've spoken about you. Spooker D, Yams, man like Yams, big up to you. Tony Marshall official. Thanks for joining in. Boxing Pound for Pound Jack. Again, we love the difference of opinions. E-Chain, big up to you as well. Chris Collingmore, Jonah 31. And then we go back down to the bottom. I think that's pretty much JC. Big up to you as well. North Bank Bren. I'm not sure if we spoke about you, but MVP. Big up yourself. And Jam Down. Can't forget Jam Down 187. My guy, funniest guy in the comments. Hot Pies. Up to you. And yeah, I think that is it for the night. So yes, thank you very much everyone for watching. We will be back next week. And I may have a guest for you lot, but you'll find out on Monday. I'm not saying any more than that. But until next time, peace.
Take care, guys.